She had always loved music. From the very first time she heard someone strumming a guitar or singing quietly in her hometown, a tiny spark lit inside her. It was like music spoke to something deep inside, a feeling she couldn't quite explain, but one that made her heart beat faster. She dreamed of standing on a stage one day with people listening to her sing and feeling what she felt. But growing up, it was never easy. People didn't see her like that. In her small town where everyone seemed to know everyone, and where dreams like hers were sometimes laughed at, she was often invisible. Not because she wasn't there, but because the people around her didn't think she had what it took. They thought she was quiet, maybe a little strange, and certainly not the kind of girl who could be more than just nice. She tried not to let it get to her, but it did. Every time she sang softly in the school music room, the other kids would either ignore her or tell her to stop being so serious. "You're not going to make it," they would say. Even some of the adults in her life didn't understand. Her music teacher, who was supposed to encourage her, once told her, "You have a nice voice, but it's not really something special. You should think about something else." Those words stung more than she wanted to admit. She knew she wasn't the loudest or the flashiest singer, but she believed there was something in her voice, a feeling she wanted to share. She wrote songs, though mostly in secret, in a small notebook she kept hidden under her bed. Those songs were like a window into her heart. She put all her worries, her hopes, and her dreams into the words and melodies she created, but nobody else seemed to care. At home, things weren't much better. Her family supported her in small ways. They told her to keep going, but they also thought music was just a hobby, not a real job. "Maybe you should think about a real career," her mother said once when she caught her humming while washing dishes. "Something steady, something that pays the bills." It wasn't just words, they were like walls closing in. She wanted to break through those walls, but every day it felt harder. So she took a job at the local diner, serving coffee and sandwiches to people who often didn't notice her. The pay was small, and the hours long, but it gave her some independence and a little extra money for her guitar strings and notebooks. At night, after work, she would go to the small cafe where local musicians sometimes played. She would watch from the corner, quietly hoping someone would notice her or that she might get the courage to sing herself. Sometimes she tried to perform at open mic nights, but the crowd was usually small and often distracted. Some nights people would come late and leave early, barely paying attention. Other nights she would be bumped off the schedule altogether, replaced by louder or more popular acts. Each time it chipped away at her confidence. She began to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe she didn't have what it took to be a singer. Maybe she was just a dreamer stuck in a small town where dreams stayed small. Still, she never stopped writing. She poured everything into her music, the loneliness, the pain of being overlooked, the tiny moments of hope she held on to. Her songs were raw and honest, but she kept them to herself. No one knew about the notebook filled with pages of lyrics and chords, about the late nights she spent in her room, singing softly to the empty walls. One evening, a friend from work, someone who had seen her sing once and believed in her a little more than most, encouraged her to try something different. "You have to get your music out there," they said. "Just one chance. What's the worst that could happen?" That little spark of encouragement was enough to push her forward. She found out about a regional talent showcase happening in the nearby city. It was a small event, but it was something, a chance to stand in front of people who might actually listen. She practiced day and night, rehearsing the song she believed in most, the one she wrote about feeling invisible, about fighting to be seen. The day of the showcase was full of nerves. She stood backstage clutching her guitar, her heart pounding so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. When it was her turn, she stepped onto the small stage and looked out at the crowd. There were judges, some music producers, and a handful of people who had come to watch. She took a deep breath and began to sing. For a moment, everything felt right. Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the words that came straight from her soul. But halfway through, one of the judges raised his hand, signaling for her to stop. He told her she wasn't what they were looking for, that her voice wasn't commercial enough, that her style wouldn't sell records. The words hit her like a blow. She left the stage feeling crushed. The hope she had held on to felt like it was slipping away. She sat alone in her car afterward, tears falling quietly, wondering if it was time to give up. Maybe she really wasn't good enough. That night, unable to sleep, she pulled out her notebook and began to write again. This time the words poured out faster than ever before. Anger, sadness, frustration all mixed together. The song that came from that night was unlike anything she had written before. It was raw and honest about feeling trapped behind walls people build around you. Walls of judgment, of doubt, of being unseen. She called it Glass Walls. It was a song that didn't hide anything. It was her truth. Even though she didn't know what to do with it, she felt lighter after writing it. The song was like a small rebellion, a way to say, I see you seeing right past me, but I'm here. The next day at work, she was quieter than usual. But her friend from the diner noticed something different in her eyes. A new kind of strength. You've got something special, they said quietly. You just haven't found the right people yet. She nodded, not sure if she believed it yet. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. In the weeks that followed, she kept singing quietly to herself, working at the diner, writing more songs. The world outside still seemed big and impossible, but inside her, the music was growing stronger. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she wasn't ready to give up yet. The journey was just beginning. After the disappointment of the talent showcase, she felt lost. The words from the judge kept echoing in her mind. Not commercial enough. It was like a door closing loudly in her face. For days, she barely sang. She barely spoke about music at all. The small spark she had been holding on to seemed to flicker and die. She went about her days at the diner, pouring coffee and wiping tables, feeling like the same invisible person she always was. Some customers smiled kindly. Some ignored her completely, and some didn't even make eye contact. The noise of the cafe, the clatter of dishes, the chatter of people felt overwhelming, but she wrapped herself in it like a shield. At night, she lay awake in her small bedroom, the notebook with glass walls on the table beside her. She read the words again and again. The song was full of pain and truth, but it was also a kind of strength. Somehow, writing it had made her feel less alone, but even with that small comfort, she felt stuck. What good was a song if no one heard it? One evening, after a long day at work, her friend from the diner stopped by. They sat together on the worn couch in her tiny living room. You can't give up, the friend said softly. You have to find a way to share your music. One song can change everything. You just need to believe that. Those words felt like a gentle push, not enough to fix everything, but enough to make her think. Maybe there was a way after all. She started looking online, searching for places where she could share her music. She found small websites and platforms where singers and songwriters uploaded their songs. Some were popular with thousands of listeners. Others were small and quiet, but all of them were a chance to be heard. It was scary at first. She recorded a simple version of Glass Walls on her phone. The sound was rough, nothing professional. She didn't even say her name. She uploaded it anonymously, afraid of what people might think. For a few days, nothing happened. She kept checking the site, hoping for a comment, a like, something. But the song just sat there, quiet and unseen. She wondered if maybe this was the end again. But then slowly something changed. A few people listened. A few left messages, short words of encouragement saying they felt the song. Then more people started to share it, sending it to friends or posting it on their own pages. One day, she woke up to find a message from a stranger, a musician she admired who had found the song and said it was one of the most honest and moving pieces they had heard in a long time. The message said they wanted to help share it with more people. Her heart raced. For the first time, she felt like someone believed in her music. Over the next few weeks, Glass Walls began to spread quietly. It wasn't a huge explosion, but it was real. More people listened, more people shared. Some told her they felt the song spoke to their own struggles, to the times they felt invisible or ignored. She still worked at the diner during the day, but at night she spent hours recording other songs, trying to capture the feelings she couldn't say out loud. The little notebook grew thicker, filled with melodies and words. She learned how to use simple music software on her old laptop, teaching herself bit by bit. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Her friend from work helped too, sharing her music with anyone who would listen. Slowly, the story of the quiet girl with the song that touched hearts began to spread beyond their small town. One afternoon, she got an email from a small independent label. They had heard Glass Walls and wanted to talk about recording it properly. It felt like a dream, but it was real. Someone wanted to work with her. She sat in her tiny apartment, the letter open on the table. The words felt heavy and light at the same time, hope and fear mixed together. Could she really do this? Could she really leave behind the doubt and the judgment? She remembered the nights she spent writing, the times she felt invisible, the judge who stopped her mid-song. Those moments made her want to give up, but also made her want to try harder. This was her chance. With trembling hands, she replied to the email. She said yes. From that day on, her life began to change. The work was hard. There were meetings, recording sessions, and new people to meet. But through it all, the music stayed her center. Every note she sang was a step toward proving that the voice they once dismissed was real and worth hearing. She still felt scared sometimes. The old doubts didn't disappear overnight. But now she had a reason to fight them, and somewhere deep inside she knew the journey was just beginning. After saying yes to the independent label, her life began to change in ways she never expected. It wasn't easy, far from it. There were early mornings, late nights, and moments when the pressure felt like it would crush her. But there was also excitement, hope, and a feeling she had never known before. People believed in her. The label was small, nothing like the big companies she had dreamed about. But what it lacked in size, it made up for with heart. The people there listened. They didn't tell her to change who she was. They helped her find the best way to share her voice without losing the honesty she held so tightly. The first time she walked into the recording studio, she was nervous. The room was filled with strange machines and wires, and the microphones looked bigger than anything she had seen before. The engineer greeted her kindly, and they spent time talking about what she wanted to create. As the session began, she closed her eyes and sang "Glass Walls" again. This time it was different. The sound was clear, the notes stronger, and her voice seemed to carry the weight of all the years she had spent waiting to be heard. After the recording, the team worked on the song, mixing and polishing it. When she heard the finished track for the first time, it felt like magic. Her song, the one that was born from pain and hope, had grown into something bigger, something real. When the song was released online officially, it started to reach more people than ever before. Listeners from places she had never heard of sent messages telling her how the song had touched them. Some said it made them feel less alone in their struggles. Others said it gave them the courage to face their own battles. One evening, she sat scrolling through the messages on her phone. Tears welled up in her eyes. The girl who had once been told she wasn't good enough was now connecting with thousands of people through her music. It felt unbelievable, but with the success came challenges. Suddenly, she was not just a quiet girl from a small town. She was a voice that many were listening to. The expectations grew heavier. There were interviews, social media posts, and pressure to create more songs that would match the first. Sometimes the weight was hard to carry. She missed the quiet nights where she could just sing to herself without worrying about how it would be received. The old fears returned. Was she really good enough? Would people like her next song? What if this all faded away? Through it all, she held on to the reason she started singing in the first place, the need to tell her story honestly. She wrote more songs, digging deep into her feelings and experiences. Each song was a piece of her shared with the world. Then came the moment she never expected. A well-known artist shared her song on their social media. It was a simple post, just a few words praising her honesty, but it sent her song viral. Streams and downloads skyrocketed. People began to notice the girl behind the music. This attention brought new opportunities. Invitations to perform on small stages, interviews with local radio stations, and messages from fans who wanted to meet her. She remembered the nights she felt invisible, the times she was ignored or told she wasn't good enough. Now people were asking for her autograph, for pictures, for stories about how she found her voice. But even with the excitement, she stayed grounded. She knew the journey was far from over. She kept writing, kept singing, and most importantly, kept believing in herself. One night, after a small concert where the crowd sang along to every word of "Glass Walls," she sat alone in her dressing room. The applause still ringing in her ears, she smiled quietly. This was the moment she had dreamed of for so long. Her music was no longer just a secret she kept in her notebook. It was a bridge, connecting her to the world. The song's growing success opened many doors she hadn't dared to imagine before. Invitations came in to perform on bigger stages, radio shows, and even small festivals. Each new opportunity brought its own excitement and its own fears. She had never performed for a crowd that large before, and sometimes the nerves felt like they might take over. But every time she stood on stage, With the lights shining down and people watching her, she felt something powerful. She wasn't just singing words anymore. She was sharing her story, her heart, and in those moments she wasn't invisible. One day, a well-known radio station contacted her. They wanted to play Glass Walls on air and invited her to perform live in the studio. It felt like a dream come true. The morning of the performance, she woke up early, her stomach full of butterflies. She practiced her song over and over, trying to keep her hands from shaking. At the radio station, the staff were kind and welcoming. When it was time to sing, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and let the music carry her. The microphone captured every note, every breath, and for those few minutes, the room was filled with the sound of her truth. After the performance, the hosts praised her honesty and the emotion in her voice. The song was played again and again throughout the day, reaching listeners across the city. Messages poured in, people saying how much the song meant to them, how it had helped them through hard times. It was clear something special was happening. The buzz caught the attention of a small independent music label from the city, which offered to help distribute her songs more widely. She was overwhelmed but excited. With their support, Glass Walls reached streaming platforms where it caught the attention of even more listeners. As her music reached a wider audience, the public's interest in her story grew too. Interviews followed, sometimes nervous and awkward, sometimes joyful and freeing. She spoke about the years of struggle, the rejection, and the song that changed everything. In the interviews, she often talked about the people who had doubted her, the ones who said she wouldn't make it, who told her to stop dreaming. It was not to hold grudges, but to show others that sometimes the hardest moments can lead to the most important changes. Her honesty inspired many people. Some told her they had been in similar places, feeling unseen or dismissed, and that her story gave them hope. Letters and messages came from listeners of all ages, some sharing their own dreams, others simply saying thank you. This connection with her audience was what made the whole journey worth it. But with growing success came new challenges. The pressure to keep creating, to live up to expectations, was sometimes overwhelming. There were moments when she doubted herself again. Was the next song good enough? Would people still care? What if this success was just a lucky moment? Those questions whispered in the quiet hours, but she learned to face them. She reminded herself why she started, to share what was inside her, no matter what anyone else thought. One afternoon, she got a call from a small but respected music festival inviting her to perform on their main stage. It was a big step. The festival was known for launching new artists into the spotlight. She accepted, knowing it was a chance to reach even more people. When the festival day arrived, she stood backstage listening to the roar of the crowd. The moment felt bigger than anything she had imagined. But as she stepped into the light, she remembered the long nights writing songs in her room, the times she felt invisible, the judge who told her she wasn't good enough. With that memory, she sang with everything she had. The crowd sang with her, word for word. Tears streamed down her face as she felt the connection she had always dreamed of. This was more than success, it was a moment of healing. After the festival, her music spread even further. People started recognizing her on the street, asking for selfies, sharing stories of how her songs helped them. She realized then that her journey was no longer just about her. It was about all the people who felt unseen, unheard, and broken. She wanted to be their voice, their light. With that in mind, she started working on a project to support young artists from small towns like hers, people who felt like they didn't have a chance. She reached out to local communities, organized free workshops, and helped create spaces where others could find their voice too. The journey that had started in quiet rooms and small cafes was now reaching beyond her wildest dreams. Still, every step reminded her to stay true to herself, to keep singing her truth no matter where the path led. She knew the road ahead would have challenges, but she was ready to face them, because now she wasn't just singing for herself. She was singing for everyone who had ever been told they didn't matter. The journey that had once felt impossible was now unfolding in ways she never imagined. From the girl who was dismissed and ignored, she had become a voice that reached thousands. But more than that, she had become a symbol of hope, proof that one song, one moment, one decision could change everything. Even with all the new experiences and attention, she stayed grounded. The struggles she faced early on were never far from her mind. They reminded her why she had started and why she needed to keep going. With every new song she wrote, she tried to tell the stories of the people who felt invisible, the ones who had been told they didn't matter. Her music became more than just her own feelings. It became a way to connect with others, to lift them up, and to show them they were not alone. She worked hard to balance her life. Between recording sessions, interviews, and small tours, she made time for the people who mattered: her family, her friends, and the community that had supported her from the start. Their belief in her kept her strong, especially on the days when doubt crept back in. One day, she received a message from a young person who said her songs had helped them through a very dark time. They shared how her words had given them courage to speak up, to keep going, and to believe in themselves. Reading that message, she felt a deep sense of purpose. It reminded her that the hardest moments could lead to the brightest light. Inspired, she decided to use her growing platform for more than just music. She began working with charities and groups that supported mental health and young artists. She wanted to create a space where others who felt dismissed or invisible could find their voice in their place. The path wasn't always easy. Sometimes the pressure of being a public figure weighed heavily on her. There were moments when she felt tired, overwhelmed, or unsure of the future. But in those moments, she returned to her roots, writing songs in her room, singing softly to herself, remembering the girl who never gave up. Her team helped her manage the demands, but she always made sure her music came first. She refused to compromise the honesty that had drawn people to her in the first place. Her efforts paid off. New songs connected with fans in powerful ways, and her influence grew. Invitations to speak at events and share her story came more often. She spoke openly about the struggles behind the success, encouraging others to embrace their own journeys. No matter how difficult, she learned that success wasn't just about fame or numbers, it was about impact. It was about reaching hearts, changing minds, and inspiring action. One of the most unforgettable moments came when she returned to her hometown to perform in a small but packed community center. The place where she had once felt invisible was now filled with people cheering her name. Some faces were old friends. Others were young people who had found hope in her music. After the show, she sat with the crowd, talking and listening. She heard stories of struggle and courage, dreams and doubts. The connection was real and deep. She realized that the journey that had begun with a single song was now a movement, a way to bring light to places where there was once only darkness. Looking back, she understood how far she had come. The doubts, the rejection, and the pain had shaped her into who she was. They had made her stronger, more compassionate, and more determined. She knew there would be more challenges ahead. Life would never be easy or perfect, but she was ready for whatever came next. Because now she wasn't just a girl with a song, she was a voice for many, and that was worth everything. The song that changed everything had become more than a song. It had become a story of hope, courage, and the power to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. And that story was still being written.